This is Hannibal here, and we are going live. It's okay, you can continue what you're doing. We are with the daughter of Joey Giambra, the famous boxer. Should have had a world title shot, but didn't. But he fought all the top contenders of his day. His daughter, Gina, is who I'm interviewing today, who is also a fitness guru. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. You're living in Las Vegas. I guess you still have a bit of a boxing connection then.
Yes, Dad is definitely he came out here for a reason and he stayed out here pretty much the whole time. So I haven't left. My brother left to Utah, which he raised my brother and I, Joey. He's my older brother, and so he's out in Utah right now. But yeah, I'm here in Vegas still.
So for those that aren't familiar with your dad, there's some black and white footage of him, but clearly he was one of the top boxers of his day. Passed away in 2018. What could you tell us about his career? And I guess a lot of it happened before you were born. He was kind of wrapping up, I guess, by the time you were getting older.
Yeah, what was the question? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pull up some stats real quick.
What could you tell? Because there's not a lot on him other than he was the top middleweight of his time, but he never was able to get a championship fight. However, he did beat the future middleweight champion a couple of times.
So this is a great story. As a matter of fact, this is one of the basis my dad wrote his book around. The Uncrowned Champion is he never took a dive, and so my dad was very proud of that. He's full-blooded Sicilian, and so um, he was very proud that he didn't take a dive for the mob and still lived to tell pretty much. So there was a fight that happened. I'm not going to tell you the whole story actually because you can read it in the book The Uncrowned Champion.
So, where can they get the book on Amazon?
Yes.
So, as far as the ties to the mob in those days, what was it like as far as like boxing's connection to the mob back then?
He didn't have a connection to the mob. The tie that saved his life was a mobster that he used to shine shoes for. I'm not going to tell you the name because it's in the book. He's very profound back in the mob days, and he ran the like the east sector of like Buffalo and a few other states. But he shined shoes for him and was when the word came back to him that he was the one that was supposed to um, get hit, he stopped the hit, and so that's what saved my father's life was a mobster who he used to shine shoes for.
Interesting. So he was 65 wins, 10 losses, and two draws with 31 knockouts. That's a pretty good record, especially 31 knockouts. Did he have any like special punch that, like, was it a right hook, left hook?
He was left. He had a left hook that was he was known for sure. And so when I see young boxers now that have the left hook, I immediately draw to them because my father was right-handed, but he just had an amazing left hook.
Do you follow boxing still?
I do, as a matter of fact, and I work on athletes in the industry. And as you know, Vegas is a fight capital. And so there's a lot of fighters out here that I connect with on the internet and um, do collaborations with. And I also work on poker players because there's a lot of gamblers out here. So um, there's a lot. There's a lot of people that I've met out here just from what I do. And so um, I actually got back into the fight world this last year because I wanted to pick an avenue on where to go with my project, because I could have picked football, I could have picked golf, I could have picked tennis, I could have picked any sport, but obviously my son, what Vincenzo, he picked up fighting, and the blood in for pro sports runs deep, and so I chose fighting, and so fighting, my son picked up, and my father did. So it was an obvious pick.
I like your son's name, by the way, but how is his career going in the fight game?
He is just starting off. He is actually good and well. He does well enough to teach boxing and wrestling. So he's that good kind of for being only 21. He has Brazilian jiu-jitsu as a background for him. Wrestling and boxing, he dominates in for some reason. And he's just a big nerd when it comes to anatomy. And I'm a massage therapist, so I've taught him a lot about the anatomy. And he's big in nutrition, and so yeah, he's I think going to be starting at one of the big MMA facilities out here. I don't want to name a name yet because I don't want to, I don't know if he wants me to do that, so.
As far as fasting, I've seen the video on your channel about fasting. What are the benefits of it, and what's your connection to it?
Well, I had a lot of health problems in my life, because I was kind of a chunky girl growing up, and so um, being a girl in an Italian family, being raised by boys, you kind of get picked on a little bit if my dad was he was a little vain. And so, um, you know, uh, he loved, good looking women, and he was a good looking man. So, he always kept up on, how his body looked, and he kind of put that off on to his kids as well. So, my brother and I were big into, fixing ourselves and getting better. And so the health issues was my biggest thing for fasting, and a lot of poisons in the food in the process. I was getting a lot of bad health problems from the way I was eating. It was processed foods and junk, and I thought the vegetarian diet was the way to go. And I'm just attempting my best to get out of all my health problems with fasting and eating more red meat.
What kind of a fasting schedule are you on?
I do my best to about 18 hours. So between 14 and 18 hours is what I shoot for, but I really don't even think about it because I, there's just so many other things to do. And the way I look at it and how I was taught is that you have to think about your body and your intestines. They're working on the food that it's digesting from last night, from what you ate last night. Like it's still working on that, or even from a couple days ago. So, depending on how clogged your intestines are. And so, a good cleanse and colon flush, upper and lower, is I would suggest if you're going to start a fast regimen, because fasting while your colon is blocked is it defeats the purpose. So you want to clean out that colon before you start doing that, because anyway, so yeah, fasting and cleaning out the colon is a good. It helps jumpstart the metabolism, even in your later ages. Like I'm not young, obviously, so yeah.
Well, you could pass for pretty young, so I wouldn't be too hard on yourself. What is this ball self massage thing you're doing with, I guess, basic medicine balls that have the plastic hard case?
So it's not plastic, it's rubber. And so if you have any rubber allergies or whatever, I wouldn't suggest it, or just use thick clothing. If you're just starting out, what it is, okay, so it's a deep tissue self massage, and it's like a foam roller. And you can, the difference with this is you're not, this far away from the ground, you're this far away from the ground, which helps prop the body up when you're maneuvering around. Plus, it's round, it's a round surface, so you can 360 and work with it in ways that you can't with with a traditional foam roller, which is horizontal. And so the 360 is more like a joint. And there's other ball methods out there, the little yoga balls and the lacrosse balls and these vibrating balls and all sorts of, balls. But I've ran down all these roads of, self-help tools, self-care tools, being a massage therapist for almost 13 years now, that I found that the medicine ball literally outshines the Graston tool and technique. Stretching alone, which is your basic stretching, doesn't do nothing for anybody. I mean, it does if, that's all you have. So of course, I'm not going to say don't stretch, but you definitely, it's like having a rubber band, and it being in a knot, and then you guys stretch it, and it's just stretching the knot, so you don't, you want to unloosen the knot first and then stretch it, so it has more of a benefit and a lasting effect, so I help teach about understanding your body and, different areas of pain and what levels of pain that you should push through, because it's okay to deal with the pain. You need it, no pain, no gain, like they said in Rocky. So
Someone says you're boxing royalty, and another person remembers your father fighting Bobo Olson. Do you have any memories of that fight?
no, I'm not that much older. I'm not that from that generation. So I don't remember these fights. Do I have anything to say about these fights? I can't really bring anything up. I wasn't around. It's hard to find footage of my father and his fights. Like I've only have found collaborations of his work. So if anybody has anything out there that they could find on my dad, like any like long videos of my father fighting, please send it over to Devin as soon as you can, because I would love to see them myself. So I don't remember anything on Bobo Olson, so I do apologize. But um, it was on August 26, 1955, if that helps anybody. It was a non-title match on national TV. Um, he continually beat the champion to the punch and rocked him many times throughout the fight. But at the end, Olson was awarded a split decision win. After this bout, Giambra was hailed by many as the uncrowned king of the middleweight division.
And he fought Denny Moye too, I guess, for the super welterweight title with Sonny Liston as the ref. So you definitely got some fans on here that know your father.
He also had a trilogy fight with Giardello, and which was one of the first back in those days of trilogy fights. So I think they started setting the ground of trilogy fights, Giardello and my father. So that is a, those fights as well. The Giardello trilogy fights with my dad. I would, if you guys could find those, I'd love that. But yeah, those were great stories.
What was the pay like for boxers then compared to today, where I think Tyson Fury has made even 100 million for a fight in Saudi Arabia
It's
recently?
sick. It's sick. That's all I can say. Like my dad, he was very humble. So the golden era, he survived, right after the Great Depression. So the purses were very small. They were like a couple $1,000s. So um, there's a lot of information in the book. You guys got to check it out. It's The Uncrowned Champion. There's the first edition. My father wrote that one with Frank Castanelli or something like that, and then Fred. And then my brother and we helped him revise a second book that we were able to push out the mobsters' names because my father fortunately outlived all of the people that in the first book. He changed all the names in the first book. And so the second book, we let it all hang out. We made it more of like a reference book. There's a lot of talk of what my dad experienced in the military. That's a big part of the book is the military back then and what my father experienced in the military. So um, yeah, so we are a vet family. But yeah, so you guys got to check out the book, and there's a lot of great information. I'd love more feedback on that from everybody. Also, we are in talking with a production company called Northern Lights. And it's an independent production company. They're speaking of picking my father's book up and making it a mini series. So keep an eye out for that. That may be coming in 2025.
Someone wants to know if your dad ever mentioned why he never fought Sugar Ray Robinson.
He said Sugar Ray wouldn't fight him. He wouldn't give him a fight.
And your dad became a referee in later years, right?
Yes, he also boxed, I think, a couple prohibition, whatever they're called, yeah, he fought a couple exhibitions, excuse me. He fought a couple exhibition bouts out here, and I don't even know who those were with, but I can get any questions that I can answer, just send to Devin, and then I will get these answers for you guys as well as I can.
And as far as your own, you got Instagram and YouTube where you're promoting healthy living, and yeah, you definitely demonstrate some of these ball massages in quite a unique way, don't you?
Yes, it's definitely a different technique that I've gotten protected by the United States government because I've put that much into it with a medical manual. It's got anatomical terminology, so it's really nerdy. And then I also have the online program. So I put a lot into it. So I had to protect it because I didn't, because this, nobody has this out there right now. There's nobody out there doing anything like what I'm doing. So because I'm a massage therapist, I know what feels good and I've been through all the freaking, stretches and, Thai massages and all these different tools. So I have all, a conglomeration of information, a wealth of information to pass on to people. And so that's what I'm doing with this is it's a self-help thing. It's immediate, it's natural, it's effective. I mean, you can't beat it. It's convenient. So I had to put something together before someone else did.
What were some of your father's worst injuries that he had to deal with?
Um, well, he had a knuckle in his hand get pushed back, but he, I think a lot of his injuries that he dealt with happened when he was a kid. It didn't happen in the ring, and if anything happened in the ring, I would say brain damage, CTE.
Yeah, that's a big one. You being in Vegas, where there's a lot of innovations in medical care for stuff like CTE and stem cells and stuff. Have you heard much about things that are being developed for fighters that have those type of issues?
Yes, I have heard that there's stuff being developed with the Cleveland Clinic. And that's one of the things that my father, in the last few years that we had with them, They were doing some tests. The Cleveland Clinic was doing some tests. Unfortunately, they couldn't include my father. They wanted to include him because of his age. So they wanted to see the brain and how it functioned after all these years. Um, and because of a stent that my father had implanted in his body to stop blood clots, which was a faulty product, um, ended up he wasn't able to do this study with the Cleveland Clinic, but the doctor loved my father and wanted to keep him as a patient. So my father kept going to this doctor does not practice anymore. This was probably a decade ago. So um, he was going to be a part of a big Cleveland Clinic study out here, but that didn't happen. Do I know anything new that's going on? I wouldn't say I could probably find out. I hate to say I don't know. As a manager in retail, like we were taught never to say I don't know. So whatever I don't know, I can attempt to find out for you guys.
How many kids do you have?
I have two boys. I'm a boy maker.
So the one is getting into fighting. Is the other one interested at all?
He is he's got an arm. He's got a football arm. So the talent runs deep in this family with athleticism. So my little guy's into football. He was into soccer big, but now it's football for the last few years.
Have you ever been involved in fighting as far as managing fighters or anything like that?
No, the most I've been involved with fighting outside of my father and his world is probably the streets.
Really? You don't look like the type, but I'm sure you have a wild side to you.
Well, we were raised on the east side of Vegas. So if you can imagine, um, it was a tough my father was a single father, so he raised my brother and I. And so I love, meeting great dads that, because I have a connection with people that, are single and, have this type of struggling life because it's not easy raising two kids as as a father, and then having a little girl, who, I mean, he's from another decade. When my brother and I were little, he's from the golden era and we were born in the 70s. So there was like a, 20-year age gap of, learning from him, his generation to ours. And so it was tough because he was always at work. He had to work all the time. And so my brother didn't want to always watch me, so I was running amok. But so I learned a lot being raised on the east side of Vegas, that's for sure, and by two Sicilian males. Yeah.
What did your dad do as his regular job?
He went from, so my father wrote another book, which we still have to get to press, but that's old school terminology, obviously. I'm showing my age. But it's called From Boxing to Blackjack. So he went from boxing to blackjack, and so then from there, I think he took some time off when he met my mom at a stoplight in Vegas. But yeah, and then and yeah, so he then, I think, probably years later went to driving limos. Yeah.
So you never knew much from your mom then, I guess.
I mean, no, she drank a lot. She was an alcoholic. So he raised us, but she was in town. It was just we didn't see her.
Now the fans love hearing about the fight stories. Could you tell us your street fight story?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, well, I was jumped by a whole bunch of girls at the bus stop in our trailer park because I was a shit talker. And so I was bullied by my older brother, so I was like bullying other people. But then like yeah, so I got jumped by a group of gangsters of like, I'm not going to call out the gang name cuz it was so long ago, but um yeah, I got jumped by them, and then I was, you know, I was wild, so I would, just fight whoever. And so even on the road, if somebody wanted to fight, I'd be like, pull over, and we'd fight in a parking lot. No lie. Um, so yeah, I mean, I could probably name several more stories, but I don't want to embarrass myself on the first interview. We'll save it for the second one.
Yeah, so you would have been better if MMA had been around for females around that time. You may have been a very good fit for that.
Something, yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, it was definitely knuckles out for sure.
Someone says in 77, your father was never knocked out. Did he ever talk about that to you?
Oh yeah, that was one of I mean, we got the luxury of hearing lots of stories. My dad was a great person at telling people his life. I mean, he'd walk in a grocery store, and or if we went to a restaurant, I mean, they'd know half of his life just in 5, 10 minutes of meeting him. Or he was just, he loved to tell his stories. I mean, he lived a fascinating life. I forgot the question.
Oh, just if he ever like talked about his fights to you, and you're basically saying he would tell them the stories to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, he told me and my brother, obviously. We were more interested when we were older, and so we would ask a lot of questions when we were older, but we heard a lot of the stories when we were young from him talking to people. So we were familiar. I mean, my brother was way more, because he was the boy, he was way more involved with my father. On that regards. If you want, I can get him on the interview next time. But yeah, and so he told us lots of stories. He loved the fact that he never took a dive, that he was never been knocked out. And the only time he's been knocked down was when he was tripped by the referee. So, yes, he loved telling those stories.
Is there a lot of pressure to take dives in boxing?
I would say back in those days, and just from my standpoint of what's been going on, one of my clients that I work on sometimes this year is a famous boxer, and he's been through the ringer this year. And so there's a lot of things that I feel like the boxing commission is needs to fix still. I mean, after all these decades, it seems like nothing is really changing for the boxers, or like in the board when it comes to certain things. When, like for the supplement thing, like that is obviously needs to get changed because there is contamination, and things should get looked at, as a from a, an ultra big perspective on that regards, because I just think that it's something that needs to be looked at when it comes to the commission, and lots of other things. Taking dives. Do I think fighters take dives? I'm not gonna say. I mean, I don't know, but I mean everybody has a hard life. So I mean, do I think it's changed? No, absolutely not. It's hard out there. Why would certain fighters have ethics when they don't have ethics outside of the ring? You know what I mean? Even some that do have ethics outside of the ring will still take a dive because they need to feed their family. So, do I pass judgment on anybody? Absolutely not. Do my father just happened to be one that he was very proud that he didn't take a dive. My brother used to pick on my dad because he would say we would be living so much better if he would have just, took a dive for the mob. But, my father never did. We lived very, I mean, poorly, to say it modestly. Um, No, my dad, he wasn't like, like that, but he made, a couple bad business decisions, and he trusted the wrong people. And so my dad never took a dive, but he was also naive. So, I mean, I don't know. I could go on and talk about my father for a long time.
What did he ultimately pass away from? Because he lived a pretty long life.
Well, he had, I feel like the medical industry is like a medical cartel. I feel like they took my father's life. I feel like my father trusted in doctors. They're from that generation where, whatever the doctor says, you do. And so he got caught up in the medical ringer, and they put him on a whole bunch of medications over the years. And I feel like, that caused a lot of additional brain damage, if you will, because I've done a lot of research because of the illnesses my father went through, and my grandmother and my grandfather in town. So I was really an advocate for my father, and my brother was as well when it came to his medical situations. So we were a very big part of his life, and making sure everything was done right. But he wouldn't listen. My brother wouldn't listen, and so it was one of those things where on his death certificate it says, um, he died of Alzheimer's or dementia or something. So, first of all, I tried to get that nixed because you can't die from dementia. You can't die from Alzheimer's. You die of complications of these diseases. So, I tried to fight the coroner's office in that regards. They said it was too late. There's a whole bunch of problems that we found wrong with the situation regarding my father. That stint that I was telling you about, he had fallen and broken his arm, and he ended up in the ER at one of the hospitals here. And we were very adamant about him not getting that MRI. Remember, I was explaining that the Cleveland Clinic said they could not run these trials because he could not have an MRI. So we were big on telling the doctors anytime he went, do not give him an MRI. So I made sure that day that, I sat there next to the nurse and I said, put this in your notes. Do not give him an MRI. I watched the guy type it in and everything. My brother and I would relay race. Relay with him 12-hour shifts whenever he was in the hospital, even though we both had kids. So we left, both of us left that day. We came back, I came back really early in the morning, and come to find out he was not normal. So we don't know what happened. He pretty much turned into this like vegetable. He talked a little bit, but they wanted to discharge him that day after they gave him an MRI when we told him not to. Aside from all the other bull crap with the doctors in the previous years and all these medications that they put him on, and yeah, so I felt like it was it was several people's fault in my father's passing. So I feel like he could have lived to 120. He was very clean living. He was very no smoking, no drugs. Um, but yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about that. Do you have any favorite boxing movie over the years that you've seen?
Hmm. The one with Jake Gyllenhaal, the fighter. And then there's another one with Mark Wahlberg. Those two are like a couple of my faves.
As far as like getting into acting or anything, did you ever try that with your looks at any point?
That was my little girl dream, was to be an actress, a singer, a dancer, and that was kind of what my dad wanted me to do because that's what his life was around. He was around models, actresses, singers. A lot of his book was, My dad mingled with Dean Martin, Joey Bishop, Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe, Clark Gable. These are the types of people my dad was around who would go to his fights and cheer him on. And so they were fans of my father's. These all these names that I just dropped. So these people influenced my father's, I think, view on for what he wanted for his kids. Therefore, that's what, I mean, he would take us on little trips to LA and California. And so we would go meet people in these lavish houses. And, we were really little. So we can't even tell you who these people were, but he would just, and then, we would be in the casinos and people would run up to him and be like, Joey, Joey. And I'd just be this little girl, like looking up, like, who is this guy? And like, why are they yelling at my dad from across a casino? But I got into acting in college. I took acting and I took journalism. I only took 2 semesters in college, and those were the two. And they're two different sides of the fence. One's being interviewed and one's doing the interview. I found out I could do neither. But I do love acting still. I do skits sometimes in collaborations on Instagram with that that F show. What the F show? Yeah, that's it.
You mentioned before you're getting back into boxing a little bit. Someone's asking if you follow boxing. Like, do you know who's the champions and stuff these days?
Yeah, one of my clients is Ryan Garcia. So Um, and I started refollowing boxing honestly from what's his name, the Jake brothers, Jake Paul and
Jake Paul, yeah.
so and I didn't even know who these guys were, right? I was just like, who is Jake Paul and why is he, why is he in boxing world, right? So I knew who he was from his videos, but I never really followed him. I don't really follow people like that. Like, so I didn't know really who he was. I just knew like who he was a little bit, but now he's in this boxing scene. So I was like really doing research. So then I started following him, seeing that he was kind of an advocate for having some sort of boxers union, and which for fighters, it's hard to catch a break, and so to have a union was like kind of cool. But you talk to fighters about having a union, they're like f that, so you get from both sides of the fence with having a boxing union. But yeah, I do follow fighting recently, yes.
Being in Las Vegas, do you go to any of like the UFC shows there or anything like that?
I have ample opportunity to go to these things. I just never do because I have my little guy. I have half the month, so and it's up and down on which days that I have him. So and usually night times going out kind of messes me up. So I just stay inside and be a boring person.
Well, you don't seem too boring from the videos I've seen of you. Any stories about Ryan Garcia that you could tell us?
A lot of the stuff that floats around about him are lies. So don't, even though he may look like retarded or act wild or whatever, I mean, he's a young guy. He's a young guy. um he makes, silly decisions. Who doesn't when they're in their mid 20s, bro? Like, plus, I mean, the thing is with him is that he's young, but he has 3 kids. So he's like this mature young guy, and so and he likes to drink. Does he do anything else? No. He's never partied. He's always been very straight edge. There's always been, things going on. He's never been, doing anything outside of what he's talked about. So um don't believe that stuff on the internet because it's all talk. And so I'd love to talk more about him, but I don't know how much I can. I signed an NDA with him.
Yeah, how does that work? I guess you must run into quite a few celebrities doing massage in Las Vegas with all the fighting celebrities that live there. They make you sign something like before you start massaging them.
No, it was just because I worked with Ryan for uh, a long duration. And so I had to sign an NDA because I was going to be around a lot of, things. So does everyone do that? No. If we're talking business, that's kind of like a given with business people. I mean, so those things are like, oh, NDA, okay, like I usually read mine first, but I've not had that many in front of me where I have to like be like, oh, concerned.
So I guess do you do like house calls for that type of thing for someone that big?
Yeah, but no NDAs are involved.
Okay.
Nope. It's very like it's if I go and do a massage, it's a personal massage, and so business isn't really ran like that when it comes to massage.
Right. It's just because you were doing so much with him, they may have talked about certain things around you when other people were in the room and stuff.
That's right. Yep. Business as usual.
I
Like
guess
like I
with a
said.
boxer, I guess there'd be a lot of neck tension and probably shoulder tension.
Oh man, their training is rigorous. So it's everywhere. I mean, if you see a boxer when they're in stance, like they're constantly pouncing on their toes. They're constantly pivoting, and so a lot of their center, their hips and their low back, their pelvis region becomes misaligned from soft tissue tension, and there's needs to be a consistent type of work with them to release tissues that are inhibiting and restricting movement. So we want to um, work with those tissues that are so it could be in the rib cage, it could be in the low hips, it could be in the hip flexors, the calves, the toes, the feet. Ryan actually loved getting his feet worked on. So as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I could imagine, and especially the road work and stuff that those guys do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and their family and team, I mean, they all take a big hit on anxiety and stress and and so the team needs work as well, and the family members and such.
Very interesting. Any other famous people you could tell us about that you may have worked on?
I've worked on several people like in the poker industry, so there's a lot of people, athletes, actors, actresses that play poker in their spare time. So I've met and worked on lots of people in the movie industry. Do I want to name drop all of them? No. I was, I mean, why should I name drop all these people's names? Like, it's not going to make me if you guys follow poker at all, you'll know the people that I've worked on that are like high level celebrities. I mean, those are the types of people that I would work on because probably the way I looked, I'm very intense when I work and do massage. So my work was very effective and people remembered it. So I made a name for myself in the poker massage world. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of people that I've worked on from the entertainment industry.
Very interesting. As far as where people can follow you if they want to look you up, what are your social media outlets?
Well, it's right now it's my first and my last name or Ballflow Body.
Do you
Yep.
have an official website or anything?
I do, ballflowbody.com. It's actually under construction right now, so check back if it's not working in the next week. It should be up by next week. Within 2 weeks, it should be back up. So just had to add some more stuff and um, do some admin work on the back office. Lots of work holding a brand. It really is like it's no joke. So I would love to say, "Oh, I have no investors. Oh, yeah, I'm doing it all on my own." No, it's not like that. Like I can't do it on my own. Plus, this is such a huge project. I couldn't even fathom to do this type of stuff on my own. But
There seems to be a lot of potential there, so I wish you luck with it. I might try some of those movements myself.
I'd love to get you on the ball. That would be awesome.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your stories, and I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to tell the fans, and may as well give your book another plug too, or your dad's book.
Okay, so I would like to give my big brother Joey a shout out and for being a great son and a good big brother. I'd like to shout out my sons, Vincenzo and Mason. They're great boys. They're going to be great men, and I'm very humbled and grateful for my boys. I'd like to shout out my family out here in Vegas: Chris, Leela, Molly, Jeannie, David, my little niece and nephew, Jackson, Sammy. Sammy, by the way, was named after my dad's brother, Sammy, and that's my brother's daughter. She's the only other daughter or girl besides me, and one other one in the family. So the rest are boys. And my son Vincenzo actually looks like my dad the most out of all of my dad's children and out of all of the grandkids. So in anybody's side. So that's off and weird to me. But yeah, it's really neat. Also, I'd like to give that book name is The Uncrowned Champion. You guys got to check it out and then get back to me and how you guys liked it. The first and the second edition are two different books. Um, and so you'll have two different reads on both of them. And again, that Northern Lights project for my dad's movie will be coming out. And so keep notes on that mini series. And lastly, thank you for you and Trisha for the interview today, and God Almighty.